This year, the holidays are just going to be different. Instead of getting together with your friends and family in person and risking the transmission of joy, love, and connection, you are to practice socialism distancing. So instead of exchanging gifts, exchange glances of hunger pains with your loved ones, because you don't have money to buy food either.
Ooh! If social distancing works, why do we have to wear masks?
When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is. And often there are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with the mask and they keep touching their face.
Sir, the Surgeon General just tweeted this. Seriously, people, stop buying masks. They are not effective in preventing general public from catching coronavirus. Sounds like we should mandate masks. Okay, so medical grade masks? No, just anything. An old handkerchief, a worn through t-shirt with holes in it, a maxi pad for all I care. I think these are all medical devices exquisitely designed to keep viruses out of the human body. I think.
Social distancing is really physical separation of people, where in circumstances where there are crowds, you remove yourself from very close contact.
Tell people to stay 6 feet apart. Why 6 feet? Because we don't use the metric system. This is America. We don't do meters. Yes, sir. I understand why we're measuring in feet, but why 6 of them? Oh. It seems like a good medically sound number to me.
You can actually socially distance yourself from your workplace by doing teleworking. You can socially distance yourself from people in social settings by not going to bars, not going to restaurants, not going to theaters where there are a lot of people. It all just means physical separation so that you have a space between you and others who might actually be infected or infect you.
The harm that you get from enacting social distancing and social isolation on somebody is the same as if they were very, very obese. Moreover, it destroys the part of the brain that is actually responsible for learning in our children and ourselves, which is known as the ventral striatum. Medically speaking, what recent studies have shown is it is the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day and being an alcoholic. I want to actually go back now to the sordid beginnings of how this social distance, social isolation technique was developed by the CIA. In 1951, the CIA held a secret meeting at the Ritz-Carlton in Canada, and it was a meeting with doctors present who had ties, and I quote, to the US, UK, and Canadian military forces. The work at that meeting and subsequent meetings led the CIA to realize that social distancing and isolation techniques were, I quote, the ideal way of breaking down a prisoner, and another quote, as effective at destroying the brain function of the prisoner as if the prisoner were beaten, starved, or deprived of sleep. 150 naval aviators who were also held as POWs in Vietnam came home from the war and echoed what John McCain had said. They said, and I quote, it was as torturous and agonizing as any physical abuse they suffered, to be separated from their fellow American GIs.
If masks work, why do we have to lock down?
We don't want to be told what to do. Well, I understand that, but now is the time to do what you're told.
Your year of dedicated obedience to tyrannical governors is helping replace the normal joy of the holiday spirit with the increased joy of lockdown-related blessings, like increased depression, suicides, child abuse, domestic abuse, overdoses, unemployment, bankruptcies, and starvation. You should be proud of your obedience because it helped you contribute to these things. Warms my heart.
Do what you're told.
And the study is called Effectiveness of Adding a Mask Recommendation to Other Public Health Measures to Prevent SARS-CoV-2 Infection. This was in Denmark. In this community-based randomized controlled trial conducted in a setting where mask wearing was uncommon and was not among other recommended public health measures related to COVID-19, a recommendation to wear a surgical mask when outside the home, among others, did not reduce at conventional levels of statistical significance incidences of SARS-CoV-2 infection compared with no mask recommendation.
Now, the third question. If lockdowns work, why is the virus on the rise? destroying our world if they work. So let's look at, here's California, locked down like crazy, one of the most locked down, masked states. As I told you, absolutely no sunshine or light or laughter happening there. This thing is skyrocketing right now. And now we could get into PCR tests, all that, but look at that. I mean, look how far back we've been watching them. Gavin Newsom is an insane tyrant, yet none of it is working. He's doing the same thing over and over, but expecting different results. There's nowhere on this earth that is locked down. Germany, it's still going up. You know, I mean, it doesn't, here we go, the United Kingdom lockdown in March. Did we see, are they going, oh, they're going back into full lockdowns, right? Because their infection rate is skyrocketing. London returns to strict lockdown following a sharp rise in coronavirus cases. I could do this all across the world.
Do what you're told. Do what you're told.
So we already got, if social distancing works, why do we wear masks? If masks work, why do we lock down? If lockdowns work, why is the virus on the rise? And number 4, if the vaccine works, why do I have to still wear a mask? Why do I have to go back to number 1?
I took a trip up there to the North Pole. I went there and I vaccinated Santa Claus myself. I measured his level of immunity and he is good to go. He can come down the chimney. He can leave the presents. He can leave, and you have nothing to worry about. Santa Claus is good to go.
This vaccine, not only does it protect you, but it also protects your most at-risk loved ones, your parents, your siblings, as well as the rest of the citizens of the state of South Carolina and the nation. So I would strongly encourage you to consider this vaccine because you will not only support those people, but you also support the mission of the South Carolina National Guard.
Hey kids, you're in luck because the world's most trusted doctor has personally given Santa the shot. So if you don't get any presents, it's either because Santa's having an adverse reaction or it's because your parents were obedient enough to protect your family from income this year. Just look
But the truth is that if we had a very successful vaccine, I think everyone would be happy with a vaccine that was 75% effective at preventing moderate to severe disease, which would mean that 1 out of every 4 people who get that vaccine still could get sick with that virus. It would also mean that probably even a greater percentage than 25% could still have mild infection, mild disease, or asymptomatic disease, in both cases of which you could still shed virus, you could still be contagious.
This vaccine, not only does it protect you, but it also protects your most at-risk loved ones, your parents, your siblings, as well as the rest of the citizens of the state of South Carolina and the nation. So I would strongly encourage you to consider this vaccine because you will not only support those people, but you also support the mission of the South Carolina National Guard.
So I think until we get to the point that we have stopped the spread of this virus, even people who are vaccinated, immunized, are still going to need to wear a mask and still need to social distance as much as possible.
I'm not coming home this year, Mom. I've been ordered to stay at home. I probably won't see you before you die. Merry Christmas. That felt good.
If the vaccine is safe, why are manufacturers protected from liability?
Hey, my name is Lieutenant Colonel Messer, Army, South Carolina State Surgeon, and with us we have Colonel Latham, who is the Air State Surgeon for the Air Guard, and we just want to speak with you on the COVID vaccine.
Despite the protestations of those like Bill Gates who have a financial interest in these experimental vaccines, and the big pharma corporations that are selling these vaccines, and the governments that are being bribed by the international public health cartel to purchase these vaccines and pressure their public to accept them, and the corporate media who relies on these big pharma corporations for their advertising dollars, some facts about these novel coronavirus vaccines are indisputable.
This vaccine has been thoroughly studied by CDC, HHS, and other private entities, and has a very good safety protocol. We feel that this vaccine is completely safe at this time, when we have no hesitation on encouraging others to get the vaccine, including our own family members, when it is time.
They are the most rushed vaccines ever developed. The manufacturers have been given total immunity from liability if their experimental vaccines cause injury. The clinical trials testing the safety of these injections are not finished, meaning that every member of the public who takes one is now a human guinea pig in an ongoing medical experiment with the population of the planet. The Pfizer and Moderna mRNA vaccines are themselves part of an experimental class of injection that has never before been given to the public. These vaccines have not been tested for their ability to prevent infection or spread of SARS-CoV-2, and are not intended to do so. And there is absolutely no long-term data about these vaccines to determine what their effects may be on fertility, the potential for pathogenic priming, or any other serious adverse reaction. That this represents the most reckless and brazen experiment in the history of the world is undeniable on its face. Never before have billions of people been pressured to submit to a completely experimental, invasive medical procedure on the basis of a disease with a greater than 99% survival rate.
Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, the National Injury Act, no person may bring a civil action for damages in an amount greater than $1,000 or in an unspecified amount against a vaccine administrator or manufacturer in a state or federal court for damages arising from a vaccine-related injury or death associated with the administration of a vaccine after October 1st, 1988.
But large-scale emergency vaccination campaigns have been tried before, with sobering lessons about the danger of such a wide-scale experiment that are being deliberately ignored right now. In the late 1950s and early 1960s, hundreds of millions of people were injected with polio vaccines that, years later, were discovered to have been contaminated with SV40, a cancer-causing virus found in the rhesus monkey kidney cells that were used to create the vaccine. In 1976, 12 soldiers at Fort Dix were diagnosed with swine flu. This kicked off a round of public health hysteria that led the US government to mandate that every citizen in the country be vaccinated. In the end, only one soldier at Fort Dix died of the swine flu, and no one outside of the base even tested positive for it, but the emergency immunization program went ahead. It was brought to an abrupt end after hundreds who had received the rushed vaccine began to display severe neurological disorders.
Remember the swine flu scare of 1976? That was the year the U.S. government told us all that swine flu could turn out to be a killer that could spread across the nation. And Washington decided that every man, woman, and child in the nation should get a shot to prevent a nationwide outbreak, a pandemic. Well, 46 million of us obediently took the shot. And now 4,000 Americans are claiming damages from Uncle Sam amounting to $3.5 billion. Because of what happened when they took that shot. By far the greatest number of the claims, 2/3 of them, are for neurological damage or even death, allegedly triggered by the flu shot.
Just 50% of Americans plan to get a COVID-19 vaccine.
If you have any reservations about the safety, then we're just here to, reinforce that this vaccine has been thoroughly studied and is very safe.
My confidence in the studies that both Dr. Messer and I have reviewed thoroughly are that this vaccine is indeed very safe, very effective, and I would certainly want to obtain the vaccine when it is my turn and time to do it. But
during the hysteria over swine flu in 2009, GlaxoSmithKline rushed a vaccine called Pandemrix to market in several European countries that was later associated with increased risk of narcolepsy. Years later, it was admitted that the 2009 flu season was no deadlier than any other flu season, but the British Medical Journal revealed that the body that advised the WHO on the declaration of the public health emergency that caused governments to purchase billions of dollars of vaccines was itself populated by advisors with direct financial ties to the big pharma vaccine manufacturers. In each of these cases, the public was told to follow the science, and in each of these cases, an unknown and perhaps unknowable number of people paid for that blind faith with their health.
my confidence in the studies that both Dr. Messer and I have reviewed thoroughly are that this vaccine is indeed very safe, very effective, and I would certainly want to obtain the vaccine when it is my turn and time to do it.
If you have any reservations about the safety, then we're just here to, reinforce that this vaccine has been thoroughly studied and is very safe.
Now the revolver is once again being put to our heads, and with an assurance that that revolver probably contains a lot of empty chambers, the public is being asked to play Russian roulette in the name of trusting the science.
I think we're in the middle of a massive experiment worldwide. And that
where are the guinea pigs?
Maybe. The experiment is, will people listen to scientists?
My confidence in the studies that both Dr. Messer and I have reviewed thoroughly, or that this vaccine is indeed very safe, very effective, and I would certainly want to obtain the vaccine when it is my turn and time when it's time to do it.
Surely those who wish to be the test subjects in this ongoing experiment should be free to make themselves into guinea pigs for the big pharma manufacturers. But every mandate or compulsion to force the vaccine on an unwilling recipient sets a dangerous precedent. A precedent that will one day lead to a tracked and surveilled population unable to resist the next generation of injectable bioelectronics. This is not a game. This is not a test. Billions of people are being asked to participate in a gigantic experiment. Not just an experiment in medical technology, but an experiment in compliance and blind trust. The pressure to say yes and to go along with the crowd in this experiment is enormous. But if we lose the freedom to say no to this, then we may lose control over our bodily autonomy and, ultimately, our humanity, forever. The choice is ours, but for how much longer?
If the vaccine is safe, why are manufacturers protected from liability?
This year, don't leave your home, don't gather, wear a mask, and there will be no dancing and no singing because it's not safe. However, what is allowed is fear, obedience, isolation, poverty, and therefore a growing dependency on your government, because that all seems safe. But would you like to hear more about how your government is great and protects you? Well, they've scared you, so you're scared, and now they're protecting you from what they told you to be scared of. And that makes them great and trustworthy. And it's communism.
Wait, communism? But I thought all these restrictions were about a virus.
Sure they are. And it would also be great if you could pretend that this year's restrictions are just going to be for this year. Because, of course, we'll be glad to hand you your freedoms back after we've taken them. So for the holidays, please keep being obedient and handing us your freedoms. You're doing a great job of doing your part. As your supreme leaders, we wish you a very Merry Communist Christmas.